So everyone, I'm Nadia Finer. That's my website. And I'm from England, and I'm a business coach, and I specialise in helping people to scale their businesses, particularly solo business owners. That's my speciality. And I often work with people who feel little, who have kind of issues with confidence or doubts, or they feel like they just can't quite do it and they need a hand. So that's my sort of my vibe, my kind of people. And you can probably get a sense from me as a person. Oh my God, everyone's like pointing cameras and stuff. Well, I have a personal story which makes this more relevant, and I'm going to tell it to you because I think it's good for you to see how I've built a personal brand and how I differentiate myself from other business coaches. Because you may or may not know that the world of business coaching is really crowded. You know, there's a lot of people doing the same thing. So, yeah, my story, if you like, is that well, it began when I was 15 and I was in a French conversation lesson, and this ages me because there were tape machines. So you had to record yourself speaking French and put the headphones on, and then you would listen to it back again and learn about, you know, improving your accent. And this was like a new facility in our school, so I was quite excited. I put the headphones on and I was talking about a film I'd seen in French, and I, you know, blah 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 blah, did my spiel. Very bad French accent, embarrassingly bad, still is. And then I hit play and hello, and I listened back to the recording of myself talking in French about this film, and I thought there'd been a mistake, because when I pressed play, the voice that I heard was the voice of a very young child, and I was thinking, who the hell's that? Why are they saying what I've just said? And you know, sometimes it takes your brain a while to kind of connect things. I am smart, honestly, but like for a while it was like the synapses were like zzz, zzz, and I realised that it was me. And for the first time in my life, I realised that I actually don't sound the way I thought I sounded, and that I have this very little voice. And age 15, when I first realised that I maybe sounded like, you know, an 8-year-old perhaps, it affected, it kind of, at that moment, my world sort of shrunk, because I thought, oh my God, I'm a freak. Like, I cannot possibly ever speak in public or do anything where someone I don't know is going to hear me, because I felt very self-conscious about it. So over the years, through education, through my professional life, it held me back. You know, it really affected the way I felt about myself and my confidence. Not helped by the fact that people notice and comment about it often. So, for example, roughly once a week someone will ring my house and ask to speak to my mum. I am the mum. I'm like 40 years old. Like, this happens to me all the time. Like, people say stuff. When I was at work, I used to get shipped off to elocution lessons by various bosses, and they'd make comments. So, you know, as you can see, over the years, it's affected my confidence. And as an entrepreneur, interesting times, because as you all know, being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of work to be done around visibility and putting yourself out there, being seen and selling. And as someone who struggles with like confidence and self-doubt and insecurities, that's super awkward, because really I just wanted to hide away, possibly behind the computer or the curtains. You know, I would just avoid things like speaking, phoning anyone, let alone videos, let alone having my picture taken, all that stuff. And I know that for a lot of you guys, you maybe don't have the same issue exactly, but maybe you can resonate with that kind of fear around visibility and wanting to be seen, particularly if you are, you know, positioning yourself as an expert and kind of having a personal brand, perhaps. So to make it even more dramatic, I went into business with someone who was really loud and scary and brash and bolshy and not the most pleasant of people. And the reason I did that subconsciously was so I could kind of hide behind her. And this eventually escalated. We had a massive row, and she accused me of playing small. She said, "No one will ever take you seriously. You're playing small. You're holding us back." And I was like, and I had a choice in that moment. Would I take it and accept that possibly she was right, or would I fight back? So this molten volcano of rage, probably pent up, being British, it was probably rather repressed for a number of years, came up. I was like, you can expect to hear from my lawyer. And I didn't have a lawyer, but I knew I could get one. It's over, no more, I'm not putting up with this anymore. And in that moment, I decided that there had to be another way of running a business where you could be yourself, where you didn't have to hide behind somebody else or pretend to be something that you are not, or almost fake, like put on a different voice even, to be acceptable or to be taken seriously. So in that moment, a quote came to me, which I really love, and it's by Joseph Campbell, and he said, "The cave which you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." And I realised in that moment, it gives me goosebumps saying, every time I say it, it's weird. I realised that my little voice is actually like my secret weapon. Not a weapon of like destruction, but a weapon for good. And rather than hiding it or hiding me, hiding behind other people, pretending to be different, I decided that I would embrace it. And that is why I now have a brand, well, you can't see it on there, Little Voice Big Business, that's my brand. And I have a podcast called Little Voice Big Business. I thought if you're going to do it, you might as well do it properly, right? So yeah, I decided to embrace the thing that made me unique. And I know this is a bit of a random story and you're maybe thinking, why is she telling us all of this? But the point is, I think it goes to show that whoever you are, however you feel about yourself, and whatever it is about you that maybe isn't like everybody else, that's actually something that you can embrace and use to your advantage rather than trying to pretend to be like everyone else, which is something that I see a lot of people doing in business. Right, so I'm now going to teach you a bunch of stuff which is hopefully going to help you to stand out and scale your businesses more and better and make more money so you can affect more people in a positive way, have a bigger impact on yourself and on their lives as well. Okay, so, I might not be like a business legend yet or a multi-millionaire, but what I have done is scaled my business, embracing the thing about me that makes me unique, but also creating a little big business. So if you were here earlier, I was saying that's my little office. It's really small. It's like that. It's really tiny. In the front of my house, I work from home. Bobby the dog is under the desk mostly. And I work with clients all over the world. I've been here speaking. I travel to America. I run a big global business, but it's little. And what I really like about that is that it's quite stress-free. Because I'm not great with stress. I'm a mum, so I do the school run. I like to walk the dog. I go to the gym a lot. And so I need a business that works around my life in a way that makes me happy. But I also don't want to have a ceiling on what's possible for me. And that, I hope, is something that you guys can connect with. So I'm here because I have this mission that I want to help other people have a little big business so that they can change the lives of their people all around the world and, you know, have a fun existence. Not a stressful one, and not one where you have a cow face for a business partner that you need to hide behind. Okay, so let's talk about what you can do, like practical things you can do in your businesses that will help you create this kind of utopian dream of a little big business, all right? And I think the first thing to say is that when you're launching your courses, you're probably going to look around and see a lot of other people doing exactly what you do. Who here has felt like comparisonitis? Yeah, okay, when you sort of think, oh, everybody seems to be doing what I'm doing and how can I be better? And maybe they have more experience than me, or their website's shinier than mine, or their hair, it's so glossy and long, you know, and you start to think, oh God, I might as well just give up now and get back on the sofa because there's no way I can be as good as them. Well, the good news is it's not about being as good as anybody else. It's not about being better, really. It's just about being you. The reason that your people, your ideal person, is going to come to you is because of who you are and the way you are. Your values, the things you believe in, your story. Yeah, your story, your vibe, the way you do what you do. And I think sometimes we get so sucked into the vortex of comparing ourselves to everybody else that we don't go there enough. We don't sort of dig deep enough into what makes us unique. And, you know, if you do that, you end up with a brand that looks like nobody else's brand. And so I almost don't really care what anyone else does, because I know that when I tell my story and when I'm myself, I attract my kind of people, and that someone who kind of swans around being all fancy is going to attract their kind of people. So it kind of it differentiates you. Does that make sense to you guys? I would also encourage you, I mean, this doesn't work for everybody, but obviously I turned something that was a kind of insecurity or potentially a weakness, I leveraged it and turned it into a strength. So that's not necessarily going to be everybody's cup of tea, and not everyone will have something like that they want to harness, but sometimes, you know, you can maybe think about something that you're hiding about yourself. And it could be, like with the quote with the cave, that actually is the secret to everything. Bit deep there, man, but you know, it could be. So just bear it in mind. And I almost don't think you can be too much of who you are. I on my trip this time, I've met so many people who've told me that they were told by others that maybe they were too much of something. You're too loud, or you're too energetic, or too, I mean, obviously the loud isn't me, but you know, some people are loud. You know, for me, you're too quiet, you're too this, you're too that. And actually, I just think it's such a shame that everyone's being kind of dampened down and pulled into the middle, and that's when we all end up being the same. So yeah, have a ponder. I mean, I'm not sure it's necessarily something you can just go, ta-da, I've decided, but it's something we can work on developing. And I just feel like the world is a much more interesting place if everybody comes at things in their own unique way. Okay. Right. Let's talk about ideal clients. Who here has a very clear idea of who their ideal clients are? Do you? Good, yes. Now, I would also like to encourage you to look out for behaviours. So obviously there's kind of defining your ideal client in terms of he or she's like this, they're interested in that, they live here, they want to learn this thing. We all probably know how to do that exercise, but what I often see is people forgetting that there's behaviours that are not acceptable and that therefore there's a certain type of person who is not your ideal client, and that's a separate thing to their interests. It's stuff like, do they appreciate you for being you? Do they behave in a friendly and nice way? Do they pay you on time? Do they haggle? No, hopefully not. Do they have money to pay you? Are they easy to find? And so I think often we're doing this exercise around ideal clients and forgetting that we have standards and that we deserve to be treated nicely and that we can choose who our clients are. So sometimes if you get sort of drawn into, and I'll tell you a little story. Okay, so a number of years ago, I had a message from somebody in my local area who needed to pick my brains, which sounds, when you think of it, it just sounds painful, right? I was at home, I'd had lots of work that day, and I thought, okay, well, she's saying let's go to the pub. Nice, never going to turn down a drink. Well, actually, that's a lie, because that would make me an alcoholic, but if someone invites me to the pub, I'm going to say, yeah, sure. So off I trotted. I'd done a whole day's work, but I thought, cool, I'll have a nice relaxing drink with this girl. And from what she'd said, it sounded like there were going to be lots of other people in the pub, right? I get to the pub, and there's nobody else there apart from me and her. Now, she, on the face of it, was my ideal client. She ticked a bunch of boxes around her interests and what she wanted to do and achieve, and I knew I could help her. But she also didn't tick a number of other boxes around perhaps her willingness to pay for things or her appreciation for the value that she was receiving. And combined with that, to create a kind of perfect storm, I, at that point in my career, was someone who wanted to please people and didn't like to say no to people. So my boundaries were blurry at best. And I ended up in the pub for about 3 hours, helping her with her business. And I don't know, I couldn't quite extract myself because I wanted her to like me and I didn't want to offend her and all this kind of stuff. So you can see how there's actually two sets of sort of check boxes that you need to tick when you're selecting your ideal clients. Now, good news is that will never happen to me today. I've moved on from that. But if any of you have ever been in a situation where people want to pick your brains, or you're getting the impression that the people you're attracting don't appreciate your value, and we'll talk about how to fix that in a second, it could just be that you need to pivot slightly and look at attracting people who not just interested in the right stuff and want the thing you're offering, but who also fulfill these sort of more practical, kind of slightly cutthroat criteria. But you need to protect yourself because you're running a business. It's not a free-for-all, okay? So I think when you can really look at attracting the right people, it's going to enable you to scale up better, right? Okay. Now let's talk about pricing now, because it leads in. Pricing. How did you guys decide how much you were going to charge for your programs? Market research, okay. And when you are selling it, what are you selling? Are you selling the results? Are you selling the amount of stuff? How have you decided what the price is?
Trying to sell the results.
Yes, you've got to sell the result. And yet, people tend to get kind of obsessed with things like the number of modules or the number of pages in a workbook, rather than the change, the outcome that you're delivering for someone. And if you think about it as a normal human being, you don't really care how long it takes you or how many pages of a workbook it takes you to achieve the thing, do you? I don't care. I just want to get there. And so what seems to happen is that we're not only doing ourselves a disservice, but we're doing our clients a disservice because we overwhelm them with stuff. And this can, if you're doing, say, a membership model, you're perhaps pricing yourself too low, then we'll talk about that in a second. You're not selling the result, you're kind of people pleasing, so you want to kind of over deliver so that they like you. You're turning them off and people will run away because they'll join your program and go, holy crap, there's so much stuff, I don't even know where to begin, I'm never going to finish, it's too much, or she just like chucked stuff at me, and that's when people tend to drop off, right? So pricing is about the result that you're delivering for people, not the amount of stuff. So definitely bear that in mind. It's also not about how you feel about yourself. Okay, and I obviously have learnt this over the years, but it's not just me, I see it all the time. How you feel about yourself on a particular day of the month, maybe, or just in general, is not how to set your pricing. Like, if you're having a bit of a down moment and thinking, oh my god, I'm not that great at this, that is not a way to set your pricing. It needs to be based on, research, how much that outcome is worth to someone. It's not a reflection of your feelings about your self-worth. Okay, and I see that happening a lot, and I've done it myself, where, then suddenly you think, well, I'm not quite sure if, maybe I'm as good as someone else, or maybe it's not perfect. Maybe I haven't got all the pictures perfect. Maybe I haven't finished and I've only done, most of it and it's not completely perfect. So I'm going to slash the price. And I really want to sell it, so I'm going to make it cheaper. Don't be cheap. At no other situation in your life do you want to be cheap and nasty, do you? No. Who wants to be cheap and nasty? It's not a good look, right? It's not a good look. And the thing with being cheap is you'll never be the cheapest. And you want your people to appreciate what you're offering. There needs to be skin in the game. If people are going to sign up to your programs, they need to... And when I first heard this, I thought, what a load of arse, frankly. That sounds like someone's just saying that because they're trying to make an excuse for charging an extortionate rate. But over the years, I've done pricing experiments, and I tell you now, it is true. If people are not invested, if they don't feel like they've had to slightly suffer a little bit to invest in what you're offering, they won't use it. At the event I was at, they had prizes. They were giving away prizes. They asked everyone to contribute prizes, and they would draw it out of a hat. And I was feeling a bit mischievous, but I really wanted to sort of almost do an experiment to see how many people who won a program, say, actually did any of it. And I'd almost wager like hundreds of dollars on the fact that probably 80% of people that won a program didn't do any of it. Because they're not invested. It's just too easy. It just kind of comes. They don't have to put in any kind of... There's no skin in the game. So if you underprice yourself, if you decide that your programs are going to be like $30, or your membership that's going to be changing people's lives for the better in amazing ways, and it's so cheap that they don't even notice the money coming out of their bank account, I guarantee they're not going to do your program and they're not going to get results. And it's a bit of a shift, because you have to realise that you want results for your people, don't you? So you need to do things that are going to increase the likelihood of them achieving the goal that you're offering. And if you make it too cheap, you're kind of destroying all your hard work. And it might be that you've got some money issues going on in your mind, which you maybe need to work on as well. But don't we all? That's fine. Over time, gradually, it'll get easier, okay? And obviously, to make more money in your business, if you fix your pricing, you will make more money in your business. It's a really simple thing to do, and yet often we're so resistant to doing that because we feel like no one will like us, they won't buy it if we do that, that we try and fiddle around with everything else and leave the pricing like scraping along the bottom of the pond, which is not a very nice place to be because it's all gunky and horrible. Okay. Let's talk about working smarter. So you are all in this room because you can see the value of courses, which is already a step in the right direction. So I'll tell you a little story about how I used to work as a coach. You do need to know that I'm smart and I'm good at my job first before I tell you the story, otherwise you're going to think, oh my goodness, what a wally, right? And this was a long time ago. So I was starting out coaching, and this was post big row with business partner. I was kind of just playing at it because I was looking at what I was going to do next, and I didn't want much stress. I didn't want to be too busy. So I had a few clients locally, and one day, so this was the scenario. One day I set off to go meet a client. I walked into town, my little town where I live, to meet a client in a cafe. Lovely. And it was kind of lunchtime, so I bought some coffee and she came and we met and I bought us lunch. And we did an hour, well, it was supposed to be an hour-long session, but she was nice, right? So I stayed for about 2 hours and I bought us lunch. And then I waved her off and she was like, oh, you've helped me so much. That was amazing. And I was like, yay, I'm winning at life and business. I am so awesome at this. And so I said, bye, see you later. At some point, I don't know when, but I'll see you, bye. And I went off to the shops because I was feeling kind of loaded. She hadn't actually paid me yet because I hadn't invoiced her. But theoretically, I was loaded because I'd just done some work. So I'm wandering around the shops and I spied some shoes that I really liked. Sorry guys, you're probably thinking she's crazy, but bought some shoes and they were lovely. They were obviously a lot more money than what I would theoretically have just earned had I actually sent the invoice, which I hadn't. I walked home feeling like I was a winner. And then I got home and I thought, maybe I'm not actually such a winner. I've not invoiced this person yet. I've over-delivered the work. I've spent money on coffee and lunch. I've spent more on shoes. I have no idea when this client's coming back. She's happy and I've just waved her off. There's no kind of consistency. But apart from that, it was a great day. And at that point, I thought, would I give this advice to my clients? No, I was being a complete wally. I was happy, but it wasn't a way to run a business, a profitable business. It wasn't a way to make any kind of decent money or scale. So I shook myself and decided that if I was going to be a coach, I needed to do it properly. And I started to work smarter. And so that's kind of why we're here today, really, looking at how to work smarter in your business so that you can still have fun and wander around the shops and spend loads of money and walk the dog and go to the gym, but you actually get paid properly and make more money than I did because I was a fool. Right, so what have I done in my business that has enabled me to do this? Well, okay, let's break it down. Let's talk about packages first. One of the big mistakes I made on that day was that I was basically acting as though my business was a drop-in centre. I was allowing my clients to just pop in and out whenever they felt like it. And there was no kind of, there was no commitment. And because I was just seeing them for a short space of time, I was actually not doing them a favour because they were just coming when they needed it rather than actually doing work on a consistent basis. So one of the easiest things you can do, even if you're working face-to-face with clients, so even if the course is one side of the business and you have other stuff going on, is to create packages in your services. I know this is not rocket science, but it will change the way you run your business because you will have a client that sticks around for much longer, obviously. You can go deeper in the way that you work together. You'll therefore get better results. They will be happier. They will refer you on to people. So it just has this huge snowball effect, and it's a really simple thing to do. I know some of you are probably like, oh, but you know, they don't want to work with me for 12 weeks. They just want to pop in when they need to. Well, of course they do, because firstly, that's maybe all you're offering right now. And people don't necessarily want to do the work, but if you hold yourself in kind of higher esteem, and you say to people, well, in order to achieve this result, in order for us to do this properly, this is what's required and this is how I work, then it changes everything. I know that, you know, I can do a power hour with somebody, but how can I change everything about their business and ensure that they implement those changes going forwards and that they have the consistent support that they need to do that in an hour? I mean, I can give them some ideas, but really that doesn't change enough for me. And I can't go to bed at night feeling like I've done the best job that I can if all I've done is kind of chuck some ideas at people, you know? So packages are key. And this brings you, you know, you can use this with your course. Obviously your courses are packaged up, right? So there's different ways of slicing and dicing course material, but look at the ways, and this is where you can get smarter, is look at the ways that you can add value to your courses. It may be that just having the modules and the videos, that could be like the standard offering, but you could have a kind of VIP offering where you have more of your time, or there's additional stuff, or you know, there's accountability, that sort of thing, bundled up to add to the value. And obviously, for many of us, the dream is that you're like sipping cocktails on a desert island and the cash is just rolling in, and every time you check your phone there's just more money and you're just like, oh, get me another margarita, thanks. That is one way of doing it, but personally what I do is I combine the course side of things with live support, because I feel like that gets better results for my people. So what I do is I have an academy, and that's how I've packaged up my one-to-many. So I have packages for one-to-ones, and then I have one-to-many, which is the course side of things. I call it the profit pack. And what I do is I have Thinkific in the back end. That sounds gross, sorry Thinkific, but you are in the back end. And that's the kind of structure of my business, the profit path, the things that people do to get to these, say, 5K months. There's videos and worksheets, and that's all automated and evergreen, it's just there, right? On top of that, overlaid on top of that, is a Facebook group. So I have office hours, I support people in office hours. Plus I do a weekly group call with them, video call. So every week I'm there and I can chat to people, they can ask me questions, and I can support them live with their businesses. So the way I use Thinkific is it's kind of it's in the background, but it provides the structure, and it enables me to work with more than one person at once. So I have about 50 people in there, and I feel like it's a really great way to scale the business, but also get really good results. So I am not a great fan of just a course on its own. I just know that when I sign up to just a course, I don't do it. You know, I kind of lose interest, or I wander off, I get stuck, and then I don't get the results. So yeah, the desert island margarita dream is perhaps on hold because I have this way of working. I'm able to scale, but I will never be out of the business. I don't want to be, because I like helping people. So that, you know, I've packaged up the one-to-ones, I've fixed the pricing, I have boundaries, I have one-to-many, delivered with the live support, and that's enabled me to scale my business. I was also going to talk to you about something else.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, ask me questions and I'll...
Do you do rolling enrollments, or do you have set start dates?
I allow people to join whenever they want to-ish, but what I tend to do is I think of it like a front door and a back door. So when I'm launching, people come through the front door and I'm like, yeah, the doors are open, and I sort of get a bunch of them in. But also I kind of have a sneaky back door. So if someone comes to me when, you know, say like through this trip and someone's like, I really need your help, I really want to join the Profit Pack, I'm like, okay, sneak around the back, it's fine, you know? And because it's dripped, oh yeah, I should tell you practical things about Thinkific. I drip my content, so people can come and whenever they start, they start. So they get a bit at a time, and I have created worksheets and videos that are so manageable and bite-sized because people are busy, they're so busy, and they're running their businesses. So if I start going, yeah, here's a 50-page workbook, they will have a nervous breakdown, and I don't want crying members of my Profit Pack. Try to keep people happy, right? So, and one time I did a course myself. It was like a high-end program around productivity. Oh, the irony. You know, I signed up to this thing, right? I signed up to this thing. I honestly wanted to shake the guy because he was doing it on a fixed launch date. So I'd signed up prior to the launch date, but I'm not quite sure what was going on because it seemed like it had started. So there was pre-work maybe that had been given out. And as a consumer, I felt like I was late to the party. I was already behind. The workbooks were like this bloody thick, which was unbelievable. I mean, when you work from home, you don't have an industrial printer, do you? You have a normal printer. Like, I don't want to be printing 85 pages every week, like huge, massive, great big things. I remember I went to a cafe. A lot of things happen in cafes in my life. And I met a friend. He honestly thought I was bonkers because I rocked up with this huge book of stuff. Like, I'm so behind. I've signed up to this program. I'm late. I can't even begin, you know, like, it was all too much. And he just looked at me and was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you've paid for this. It should be serving you. Why are you behaving in such a, you know, deranged fashion, frankly? And it was really interesting to be on the other side of things and the impact that too much stuff can have on you as someone who's actually using a program. And I think, yeah, resist the urge to create so much stuff. People will thank you if they can achieve the same outcome in like one sheet of paper and a 5-minute video. Don't want to sit through 50 minutes of stuff and be like, bloody hell, when's this going to finish? Because you just want the result, okay? So, yes, I would also like to talk to you about, yes, a portfolio of products. If you think about how much effort and time and money it takes for you to attract one person, and then if you provide them with a product or a service that they consume in like 30 days, and then they're finished, and you don't offer them anything else, I feel like that is a big shame, because you are essentially creating that kind of drop-in centre vibe in your business. Even if you have packages, so say even if it's like a 12-week course or a 6-month program, what happens afterwards? You'll end up with people just going, oh, I've done that now, and then they go to your competition and they wander off. So have a think about how one thing leads to the next. Create these, I think in my mind, I think of like stepping stones. it's not the most original metaphor, but you know, you do one thing and then what's next? Where are they going to go after that? Because your business, I want people to stay with you forever. Like, I love my clients and I kind of want them to stick around for years to come, and they often do. Sometimes maybe too long, but anyway, that's probably another story. But you know, you want them to stick around, because it's otherwise you get stuck in this endless cycle of launching and selling and launching and selling and launching and selling, and it's exhausting. So I see a lot of people burning out because they're so obsessed with selling, and then they forget about keeping their clients for longer. So that's why I like the academy. So my profit pack, I made it up, right, the academy model, but in my mind, an academy is like a membership, but it's higher priced. So I'm not, it's higher touch and it's higher priced. So it's not like I'm relying on getting thousands of members, because sometimes you look around and you say, oh, well, such and such, she's got 5,000 members paying $30 a month. Nice. Do you know how big your list needs to be to have thousands of members? Pretty bloody big, right? And most of us don't have a list that size. Most of us are not famous enough to do that. We don't have the budget potentially to spend on advertising and marketing in order to achieve that. So rather than kind of go home, cry about it and give up, why not shift the way you structure things to make it not only serve your people better, but serve you better? So the profit pack is supposed to be small-ish, because I know that I can manage it, I know I can deliver better results for people, but I also know that it works with the kind of the size of person, business that I actually am, and the list I have and the reach I have. So I'm not putting kind of undue pressure on myself to suddenly, you know, have a list of 50,000 people, because I don't. So I have, an academy. It's a higher price, it's higher touch, and I think that, like we said before, that gets better results because you're actually able to help people in the moment when they're stuck, rather than letting them kind of get depressed and wander off and then give up. Okay. I did take this metaphor a little bit far in my last talk, and I'm not going to necessarily do that now, but given the audience is not just women. But I was talking about guts and having balls, and the idea that, if you want to go big in your business, if you want to make more money, pump up your profits, help more people, you need to have, I'll say guts. You need to have guts, because and for me that's about the guts to be different, the guts to put yourself out there and be visible, but also the guts to be tenacious and not give up. So a lot of people create courses, they create them, but then they don't see it through and they give up too soon. They don't have the kind of resilience to keep going, because ultimately it's an entrepreneurial journey, right? And there's highs and there's lows, and it's really challenging at times, and stuff doesn't always go according to plan, and maybe you create something and it doesn't sell straight away. And that's where most people give up. Most people just walk away and go, oh nuts, I'll go back to my job, or this was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, I'm going to jack it in. But success comes when you keep going. Success comes when you pivot, when you're a bit agile and make changes. And when things go wrong, or it doesn't quite pan out the way it should have in your mind immediately, you keep going. So I know I can't really teach that. It's not like you can't really do a worksheet on it, but it's certainly really important. And I feel like if we could all just perhaps embrace the fact that this is an entrepreneurial journey, and I just feel like it's bound to be difficult. I don't expect it to be easy, and almost when stuff goes wrong, I just go, oh yeah, I thought it was, that's what I expected to happen. It's this kind of golden sort of, people have this vision that they're just going to float along and it's all just going to fall into place. Well, when in life did that ever happen? Never. So we just need to be a bit more realistic and have a bit more like feistiness about us so that we can press on, make the changes and continue until it does work. So I would really like to see you guys doing that rather than maybe just going, people kind of say, oh, I made a course, ta-da! And then, you know, that's just the beginning. That bit is just the beginning. Otherwise, you've just made a course, but you haven't marketed the course and you haven't adapted the course to make sure it works for people. So yeah, I hope that's not too depressing for you. Yeah, so there's some practical things that you can do, hopefully, to scale the biz. Yes?
There's a question in the group.
Oh, yeah.
So Lynn's wondering, what do you offer in your Facebook office hours? Is it Facebook Lives, or do people just post questions, kind of like written discussions?
Yeah, I do written questions for office hours, but that's because I have video calls for the coaching calls, so I kind of balance the two. So I think there's also a balance to be had between what works for you in your life and what works for people, your people. So I know that they love the face-to-face.
Excuse me.
Bless you. People love face-to-face. They like to hang out, they want, you know. But for me, I have to put some boundaries in place because I don't always want to be on camera. I want to be in my pajamas answering questions or drinking lattes with the dog at my feet kind of thing. I don't always want to be on show. And also my brain works well when I can read the question. And, you know, sometimes people, when people ask a question, they don't ask one question, they ask about 5 and they sort of vomit it out. So I like to be able to kind of copy and paste and then answer that bit and then answer that bit and that bit. So I think they get a better answer sometimes. But I think, yeah, definitely having a set office hours so that you can gather questions and then answer them in one go. And then maybe doing calls at set times so that it doesn't, you know, you don't want to be working on this full time, really. So you need to have some structures in place. But that presence, knowing, like people knowing that you're live, that you are going to answer their question, I think that sets you apart. And you know, we talked about competition and comparisonitis. Well, in terms of the journey of a business, what seems to happen often is that people start out and they give of their time and they're present for their people, and then often you see as people get massive and really big and they run a machine and they have huge teams, they're not present. So actually, as a smaller person, as someone who's new, you get to be more present, which is great. And your people are going to appreciate it because they're probably a bit jaded and a bit pissed off of buying stuff from people who are not present and who don't get back to them or answer their questions. So that's a good way to kind of add value to people. Does anyone have more questions? Yes.
You mentioned you've got a global clientele.
Yes.
How do you get them?
How do I get them? Well, stuff like speaking gigs, so that always helps. And that tends to kind of snowball. But you can also apply for things, you know, apply to be on podcasts, say, put yourself forward for speaking opportunities. Obviously, I don't want to travel the world constantly because I like being at home. But I have found that when I've done events, you know, I've ended up getting like a whole bunch of clients, say from America or Canada, and then they've referred me on to people. So make it easy for people to refer you. Also, if you think about Facebook groups and programs that other people are doing, you're going to get to know people from all over the world through that. I think another way is content, like creating content that is not like, you know, it's online content. If you do a video or you do a podcast of your own or you do a guest post, clearly the people reading that can be based anywhere. So it just starts to build. when you're creating content, it needs to be consistent. I feel like I'm the bearer of bad news here, but people kind of think that maybe they just write a couple of blog posts or, my son's called Jacob, right? And he had his unique approach to a YouTube channel, which was talking about the idea, getting it started. It was awesome, by the way. It ran for 5 episodes, and then he decided he couldn't be asked to do it anymore, and that was it. So it was a crying shame, really, because actually I think he was onto something. That approach to content is not just limited to 10-year-olds, because often I have a lot of clients who do the same. It's like one blog post or one podcast interview, one video. It's not enough. It needs to be, and you get traction, and stuff doesn't just. Sorry, people, it doesn't just happen immediately overnight. And when people tell you that it has, when you hear stories of how I went from this to that in 5 minutes, it's bollocks. It's not true. It takes a while. And usually if that is the case, they had something before and then they just launched something else off the back of it. So it's a reality check. But what you can do is be smart about the way you create content. So I have a podcast. It was resting while I wrote my book, but it's coming back. I like my podcast because I can wear whatever I want. I can have crazy hair and bad skin and no one knows. Great. And it obviously is good for my brand because it ties into the whole little voice thing. But for it to really work well, it works best when I do it regularly. But I can batch create content, do 3 in a day or 4 and then release it over the month. It's not good enough when I just do one and then forget and can't be bothered. If I want to get results, I have to keep going, and you all need to do that too. Pick a thing you like to do. Be smart about it, so batch create, but also you can extract the audio from videos, or if you make videos, you can put them in different places. Make stuff work hard for you. Don't just kind of get busy and then be overwhelmed. Just be smart in the way that you do it, but be consistent. Yes.
So do you have any guidelines on how frequently one should create content with regards to blogging or podcasts or posting on social media? And also, do you have any recommendations for batch content, like apps or some kind of platform that you use? Okay, so in terms of how often, I don't think there's one answer because everyone's different. So I find it really dispiriting when the big guys are I just created 400 podcast episodes, and I think, holy crap, there's no way I can do that. I'm too busy, I don't want to, it's overwhelming, I'm just not going to go there. But what I also know is that 1 every 3 months isn't enough. So there's kind of a balance. I think you train your people to hear from you regularly. If regularly is once a week, nice. If you want a daily podcast, you're nuts. Don't do it. But once a week or every 2 weeks, that seems manageable, particularly if you batch create them, then it's not taking over your life too much. It has to work for you so that you can keep doing it. So I'm not going to tell you really how often to do it because I don't know enough about your life, but just commit and, decide I'm going to do this once a week or however often it is, and then do it.
For how long to see the
For how long?
Yeah.
Oh, well that's how long is a piece of string, but, when I first started, I quit my job 12 years ago, and I wrote a book. That was how I started on this journey. And we had a blog first, and it took a while to get traction. It wasn't an overnight success, but the blog did get traction. We did get an agent, we did get a publishing deal. It happened, but mainly because we didn't bloody give up. We just kept going and it happened. And I don't know that you can say, oh, it's going to take a year or it's going to take 6 months. It just totally depends. But I do think that there's not enough effort going into things. There's not enough smart effort. There's people kind of running around like headless chickens going, oh! And actually, like if you make a blog, you can then say it as a video, turn it into a podcast, make it into a guest post, stick a bit of it on Instagram, whack it on Facebook, and Bob's your uncle. You know, you've made that work really hard for you, and it's not that difficult to come up with 4 things in a month. Just keep doing it. The other thing I would say is don't forget about like old-fashioned stuff, partnerships, you know, face-to-face events. Like it's great to have an online product. It's great to kind of go, I'm going to just make some Facebook ads and drive traffic to it, and woo, it happens. But actually, I think that's good. It can happen in the background, but you know, go and meet your people and get out there and be seen, and think cleverly about opportunities and how you can offer what you do to a big business maybe, or to a, you know, like with John who's doing school stuff, like how you can go to maybe education boards, that's what it's called in English. You know, that kind of thing.
So much, that's a labyrinth.
Yeah. But like, do you see what I mean? You're not just like, oh, I'm just going to target like individual kids and run some Facebook ads. I'm thinking, right, where can I go and like reach out to 2,000 of them in one go? And how can I be seen by those people as an authority in my field? Okay? So don't discount old-fashioned things. And I think sometimes people just get so kind of caught up in, oh, this, the new way of doing things, it's so clever, and the margaritas on the beach thing. But if you want it to work, yeah, go on holiday and have some margaritas, great. But you need to be a bit clever about things and not just kind of switch that entrepreneurial sort of inventiveness off. Don't be constantly just looking for a blueprint that somebody else kind of did once and it worked. You've got a brain, so we still need to be like spotting opportunities and coming at things in a more sort of creative way. And that's what, you know, I do that. That's how I get out there. I'll come to you in a sec. Yes?
Oh, yes, thank you. In terms of your academic academy model?
Yeah.
So I've heard of some people who charge like on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
Or some people just charge like a membership to get in.
Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you how I do it. So I give people a choice. So I say it's a year-long thing. So I've tied them in, which took a lot of courage actually, because at first I was just like, you can just go whenever you like. But that's not good, because if people come and go whenever they like, then they're not actually going to get the results. They need to commit. And I recognise that it takes time. So I've said, you know, you need to be there for a year, and there's a whole process that you go through. We redesign your business. We look at all the, you know, the packages and how to get it online and how to sort your messaging, yada, yada, yada. Takes time. And they can pay monthly, or they can pay less upfront, and I give them a choice. Most people pay monthly, and I think that's fine. I like monthly because I like getting monthly
When you have a
payments.
membership, does that mean you have to kind of guarantee a certain amount of content?
Yeah, well I have all that content. So when I first launched, I didn't. So I kind of got people in, and I was like, right, I've got 2 months. Fine, I'll get them in, and then I'll get to work. So I got people in, and then I was always ahead making the stuff, but I did it a bit at a time. So I don't want to see you falling into the sort of making trap when you're like, I've crafted this thing, it's all perfect. You know, I've spent years on this course, and I've spent hundreds and thousands of dollars making it wonderful, but you haven't tested it or taken it to market to see if anyone will ever buy it. I'd much rather it was like sort of there, or even like, depending on how ballsy you're feeling, you could pre-sell it. I love pre-selling. I pre-sold my book. So actually I sold hundreds of copies of my book on a platform. It wasn't a big scam. It was, it was proper. And then I wrote it. So, because I wanted to know that people were going to buy it. I wanted to know that it was interesting to people. And I remember when I worked in a consultancy many moons ago, we would only create things that we were paid to create. Because obviously it's a business, right? You don't want to be making stuff that might not get sold. So we would kind of think about things in a new way after we'd pitched it roughly to someone and they were like, yeah, that sounds cool, and then we got to work. But we'd already, we had cash coming in then. So maybe just adjust the way you think about things so that you launch stuff in a slightly more audacious way and then you add to it once you've got people paying you, because otherwise there's a danger that, years pass and nobody buys the thing. It's really sad.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess maybe to segue that, do you offer KPIs or like a table of contents to your clients to say this is what to expect from my course? This is the results you'll get, or do you just kind of say, yeah, trust me, kind of thing, just pay me a year?
No, I don't do that. So I have, obviously testimonials, and I think because I've been around for quite a while now, I do have quite a good reputation, I guess. So I've got tons of testimonials, people know me. I have my profit path, so I show them, and you could launch a program with just the framework. You could say, this is the goal. So for me, I tell people that it's all about hitting 5K months, because that's a good, I feel like if you can get to 5K, then we can go bigger after that, but let's just get there first. That's the goal. And then I have this path that they follow to do that, and I show them all the things they're going to work on. And it makes sense because it's, one thing at a time to scale the business to get to that point. So I think that's, one of the important things you need to do is build trust. And when you're coming from nowhere, nobody knows who you are, and maybe you're not even sure of yourself, it is hard for people to trust you, but then there's lots of things you can do. It's not just putting your time into building the course. You need to be looking at these relationships with people, how you can get out and about. What can you do to add credibility to your website and to yourself as a business owner? And that comes from things like giving talks or working with other people, getting brought in to do something. Actually, that makes me think of something else. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday who runs a very successful IT business, like really successful. But then she's moving into kind of business coaching, and she wanted to have a program. Her IT business is all about databases. How do you, that's not really my area of expertise, but how do you organise all that information? How do you keep clients for longer, like by building these relationships using like facts? And yet in the new business, it was like vague, super general, just could have been anybody and not really leveraging the expertise that she had. And we had this long chat. Admittedly, I was massively jet lagged, so I'm not quite sure how much sense I was making, and I'd had 3 beers. But, right, makes much more sense for her to take that. She's trusted at the IT business. She has a reputation. She's making a shit ton of money doing that. And looking at how you can scale that, going really specific in the thing that you're delivering and maybe taking it to a different audience. But specific, not trying to do everything. And I think often people are trying to teach everything in a vague way, and there's no sort of concrete results, and it's not leveraging the thing you're actually good at. So yeah, don't do that. Any other questions?
Oh yeah, the batch content creation tools, which...
Oh, tools, I forgot about that. My main batch creation tool is a notebook. Here, I had some coffee earlier and I just brainstormed about 20 podcast episodes and was like, boom, I was on a roll, just like loads of ideas. And so then what I'll do now is I'll go through it and be like, right, well, these 10 make the most sense and are fairly easy for me to do now. So I'll do them. You know, in terms of like scheduling social media, I have to say I actually outsource. I have a VA. I have a team actually. Let's talk power teams. I have a team. One of the things that holds people back is trying to do everything themselves.
So I was going to ask you about this.
Yeah.
About
So
marketing teams and things
yeah.
like that.
So I have my little big business. The idea of a little big business is, and based on my past dramatic experience, no business partners for me, no premises, no investors, no full-time staff. I don't want any of that. I just don't want to work like that. So what I do is I work in a different way where, so you can see I'm like at the centre of my business, it's built around me, but I bring people in as and when I need them. I pay people very well because I want them to do a good job. I really cannot stand it when people are constantly trying to get stuff, you know, like bartering or like for a bargain, and then they're pissed when they get crappy work. And you just think, oh my God, well, you want to be paid properly for what you're doing, so respect others and pay them properly. So I bring people in, good people. I'm really good at spotting good people, so sometimes I find them in weird places, like on Fiverr, but then I kind of extract them, and like my video editing guy, Herman, is a legend, and I found Herman on Fiverr, but he's so talented, and I obviously don't pay him $5 to do a video for me, but I just can't live without him because he's cool, right? So I have a video guy who I bring in when I need. I have a podcast production person because I don't bloody know how to edit audio, right? I don't know. I have artist people who do my little bits and bobs, and you know, whenever I need that, I get someone to do that because I'm shit at things like that. I'm also not good at bookkeeping, so I have a bookkeeper. I have a VA that does my tech, but they're not like permanent staff members. I don't need them all the time. I just bring people in when I need them. And who else have I got? I have a PR person at the moment. So yeah, I bring them in as and when. I pay them properly. I look for people who are better than me, a lot better than me at that thing. I'm really happy to admit that I'm terrible at lots of things. That's fine. I don't feel like upset by that. It just means that I'm free to bring good people in.
What strikes me here is did you hire a brand person at all? Because your design and your black and white and the...
I have an eye for branding,
okay.
but I bring, you know, I had someone design that for me, but I choose things. I buy stuff that fits my
symmetry
brand.
and all that. Would you recommend hiring a marketing person?
If you're not visual, like there's a lot of terrible branding out there. Get someone good.
What branding your name though? Branding your product. I know you use your name as a brand.
Yeah, like name it. People can help with names. People can help with logos. I keep reading posts that say things like, it doesn't matter if it's not, like, stop being so obsessed with making everything pretty.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I don't think I'm obsessed with making things pretty, but I do think the fact that I have a really coherent brand is powerful.
Yeah.
And so just stuff like when I buy a notebook, I make sure it's the right colour. If I see spotty shirts, I buy them. I'm really enjoying dungarees at the moment, so I'm like, need to stop buying those. But like, you know, I just kind of style myself and my business a bit so that when I'm on a video, it looks good. I don't want it to look pants when I'm, you know, like wearing the wrong colour and things are all skew-whiff. So in my office, it means that I can record videos in my office and it looks really spot on every time, and I just think it elevates you. If it's not your forte, get some help. And that goes for everything. If it's not your strength, get help. And you can look at the stuff that only you can do in your business, and ultimately it should become the case that that is all you do. So for me, supporting my clients, like coaching, speaking, doing video content creation, like the brain stuff, that needs to be me. But there's so many other things that other people can help me with. And when I let that go and get better people, I don't spend 3 weeks trying to fix something in Thinkific, I get someone who can do it in 5 minutes,
Quick question from Leah Grand. She's wondering who takes your professional pictures. She loves your website and homepage.
Oh, thanks. I had a friend do it, and she doesn't want to be named because she's like, I don't want any more clients. So I call her the phantom photographer. And the phantom photographer is very clever because I'm terrible at having my picture taken because I get really embarrassed and I've always got my eyes shut. So if you find someone that's good, then keep them. For a long time I had one photo as part of my whole hiding thing. I had this one picture. It was so cheesy. I was like looking over my shoulder like that. And I think I was about 22. And I just kept it for way longer than I should have. And I just used to rock it, bring this picture out for everything. Whenever you needed a headshot or anything, I just used one picture. And in the old days, my website wouldn't have had my name on it for a start, and I'd have had an about page with the one picture. And the thing is, it's all about building trust, isn't it? And I think, we said about testimonials and partnerships and like press coverage and all that sort of thing, that builds trust. But when you look at somebody in the eye through your website, if it's a photo or a video, and they can like connect with you and bond with you through your words and through the visuals, that builds trust. So I do think it is important to have pictures of you on your website, and you might as well have good ones, right? Because you don't want to be like, oh, every time I look at that it makes me want to vomit. You might as well feel like it makes you feel good to have it. And ladies, a tip, when you're having your picture taken, you might as well get someone to do your makeup for you on that day, because you keep these pictures for a while, and might as well look your best. So yeah, I definitely think like once a year getting some, we're so visual now, damn, you have to just be seen everywhere. So kind of updating them. It doesn't need to cost loads.
I think men too.
Yeah, but you might not need makeup.
Some men wear makeup.
Do they? Yeah, I guess so. Well, you might as well kind of make the most of it. But think about what you're wearing as well. Don't just wear any old thing, because you can see the spotty shirt looks pretty cool, doesn't it there? It matches. And so I've tried to kind of have costume changes, so pretentious, on a photo shoot where you're like, quick, change, so that you don't look like you've only got one shirt, like I look today. Any more questions? Any more questions from online or in here? Are we good? Oh, you've got one, actually.
Well, I do, and if you don't want to go there, that's okay.
Okay, no, go there, it's fine.
You were talking about the importance of connecting face-to-face,
Yes.
the old-fashioned way.
Yes.
So, and you were talking about getting global clients and speaking hither and yon. So, hither might be the United States.
Yes.
Yon might be...
Africa.
Indeed.
Yes.
So, logistically, do you get them to... Sorry, this is specific. Do you get them to pay for it, and do you get a special visa for it, or do you say, I'm going for margaritas?
The visa, what do I do? I think I just do like a visit, like...
Right, going for margaritas.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think in America especially it gets a bit complicated. Yeah, I can't be doing with that. In terms of how it's funded, it just depends. So sometimes I'll go and people will buy books, you know, so I kind of get paid that way. I tend to view, because of the work I do, I just view it as marketing, really. And I get to travel and meet new people, which I find really cool. So I just view speaking as marketing. So I have a budget for marketing, and I decide, you know, am I going to spend that on Facebook ads maybe, or am I going to travel and go and be at this thing where there's like 300 of my people in a room? And that seems like a good way to do it. So you can get paid to speak. It depends on the type of speaking that you do. In England, I think in England I'd get them to pay my travel and buy books. And I try and limit it actually, so I'm quite specific about the ones I go to, because it's quite tiring otherwise. And I have a child I'm meant to look after. So I can't just be going all the way all the time. So yeah, just build it in, do what you like. If you hate speaking, don't do it. If you hate travelling, don't do it. You could do, you know, if you like speaking but you hate travelling, you could do live streams or podcasts, and then you can just do it. I like the fact that you can be dressed from the waist up and wear pajamas waist down. That's cool. So I just like to mix it in, and I think finding the stuff you like makes it more enjoyable for you. But yeah, keep an eye on the expenses, because you don't, you know, it's supposed to be about making a profit. And if you find that you say, like I know when I speak, I get clients, so it's a bit of a no-brainer. But if you do it and you think, actually, this isn't working, as with anything, don't do it anymore. Change it. Okay?
Question from Jason Hall. He's wondering, if you have a bunch of offers, how do you structure where to try to bring them into your business, and which type of offer and then why? Like, I guess if you have multiple courses, maybe, like if you have a membership.
Yeah, okay. So I think what would make the most sense in my view is to have your ideal client, like the idea of who they are, and then, like I said, those stepping stones. I think it's easier personally when you're attracting the same kind of client. I prefer to just have one sort of person that I work with, so that I'm not having to have different messaging all the time. So I'm not attracting like I don't really work with corporates, for example.
Right.
So if I did, I'd have to change. So, you know, I just like my kind of people. So I bring them in, and then I'd have this kind of one thing that leads to another thing, which leads to another thing. So you can kind of upsell people to the next stage, and it makes, I feel like that gives you a longer relationship, and it makes more logical sense than having people kind of going all over the place. I guess if you're thinking about bundling stuff together, maybe, think about that. Another option would be that you maybe have separate courses, and that you could sell them all together in like an academy, for example, and it's dripped and they stick around for longer. I think I've mentioned this, but I just like people sticking around for a long time, because it's more rewarding for me, and I think it gets better results. Does that make sense? Do you have to type that, what I've said, or can
No.
I was going to say. Blimey, that's dedication. Does anyone have any other questions?
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys, for coming.
Maybe say bye to the Facebook group, and then if they have any questions, they can just put it in the comments as well.
I totally didn't even look at the camera.
No,
I forgot.